Welcome to Determined to Succeed. I'm your host, Dawn Malarney, also known as the Unique Connector. So I'm so excited to have Laura here on the show today. So, Laura, I want to kick it off with you of why are you so passionate about bringing people together and traveling the world?
I think just from my own personal experience traveling and how it has literally changed my life. I mean, I'm putting that in really simple terms, but I want that for other people. I've seen what travel can do for me and what it's done for me and how it's healed me, transformed me, changed me in so many ways. And I see so many people that want to travel. I think a lot of people talk about travel and very few people actually like get out there and do it. And so,
Mm,
the main premise of my business is to give people like a really easy way to be able to do that, because trying to kind of remove all of the barriers and the things that stop people from getting out there and traveling. And then, group travel is just I always say it's about, yes, it's about the destination and the place we're going, and we're doing amazing things and we're experiencing all of these crazy things all over the world. But having that like unique combination of people on a trip is what really makes it special and makes it transformative, because you just never know who you're going to meet. And I have yet to see a group where they don't bond, make friends, end up like having these kind of lifelong friendships after the trip. So it's just been a really, really rewarding experience for me and for the people who obviously are on the trips too.
yeah. Well, I would say I've had a couple of friends go on your trips and say how amazing it is. And I think that's, you just hit it right there of how it's all about the people and building the connection. And I think that's the cool part of what you're doing is seeing the world, but helping people build connection and kind of being the person also that though too that has to like herd the cats and to make sure people are getting there safely. And, to being a female, there's probably things that, some people are instantly thinking of, oh my gosh, how is she doing this? She's beautiful. She's going around the world and, she's young. How is she safe? I'm just thinking of my mom would probably be saying that right now.
All the time.
Yeah.
All the time. Yep. My mom has Find My Friends set, she has my location at any given time. Um, but yeah, that is something I get all the time is either like, don't you feel unsafe? Because I intentionally pick places that are misunderstood, misrepresented in the media, maybe have a reputation for being dangerous or has kind of like a dark past, or I intentionally pick those places because one, I don't feel like you need my help to go to Paris. Like it's pretty easy to do that. It's not necessarily intimidating for people to do something like that. Whereas when somebody wants to go to a place like Cuba or Mexico City or Colombia or Morocco, there's all these places that I think people are like curious about and they're like, I would love to do that, but I wouldn't do it by myself. And I don't know where I'd begin to do something like that. And so I really try to focus on those places because one, I feel like they're misrepresented. It's not accurate. What you see on the media, or like, for example, I always use Colombia, one of my favorite countries in the world, like just a wonderful, wonderful place. But you watch Narcos, and that's what people think
Mhm.
Colombia is like now. They think it's dangerous. They think it's all about drugs and that, you're going to get kidnapped by the cartel and all of these things. And like, it's so far from the truth. But if that's all people are ever shown, then that's what they're going to continue to think. And so my goal is to really kind of break down these stereotypes and these misconceptions people have about these places and what the people are like in these places in particular, because I think when something's unknown, it becomes scary and dangerous. And so my goal is to familiarize people with what these places actually look like, what it actually looks like to travel to Morocco, what it actually looks like to be in Colombia. Because a lot of times what I see is people are like, I never thought I would want to go to this place until you showed me what it's actually like. So
Mm,
um, there's so much tourism in certain parts of the world, like Paris. I pick on Paris all the time, but like Paris doesn't need more tourism, but there's
yeah.
places that do. There's places that thrive and survive off of tourism. And if people aren't willing to go there, then the people in those communities are suffering. And so, I want people to like broaden their horizons and open their eyes to other possibilities besides the, top 10 list in the world of places that people can go.
Well, I love that so much because you're caring so much about the people that live there. And then you're caring about, to change the image and change the perception that the people might have on this. And so, that takes a lot of guts to do that. And two, that you're so determined to, help them succeed. And so that's the part that I love about it. And I even think of, a recent travel that you did with a couple of my friends that went on it. There was the earthquake. So even talk about that, of how it even kind of changed even the trip a little bit too, because some of the things are going to happen that are unexpected.
Yeah, so I recently did a private retreat with a group of female entrepreneurs. Several of them were based out of Madison, Wisconsin.
Mhm.
And my first day that I got there, my group wasn't there yet. I think there was 3 people that were already there, and I was touching down, landing. And when the plane landed, I found out that they had just experienced an earthquake in Morocco, and it had just hit, literally, like the epicenter of the earthquake was right outside of Marrakesh, which is where my trip was based. So I turned my phone on and I immediately had like 40 messages, and that's never a good sign.
Mm.
Like nobody knew what was going on. The only reason I knew was because one of the girls on the trip was stuck on a rooftop in Marrakesh when it happened. And so she was scared and she was messaging the group. And anyway, so long story short, like it ended up being okay. But I didn't know that when I landed, and I was actually supposed to land at 11:10 p.m. and the earthquake happened at 11:11. My flight
Ugh.
got delayed by 20 minutes or so out of Paris, and so I landed about 20 minutes after the earthquake had just hit. But so like who knows what would have happened if my flight would have landed on time. So I truly believe everything happens for a reason, and my plane was delayed for a reason. But we got to the airport and there was broken glass and there's like water coming in from the ceiling. Like nobody knew what to do. Like there's no instruction book on how to handle an earthquake or how to handle a natural disaster when you're traveling, especially not how to run a group trip during a natural
Mhm.
disaster. That's something I just never thought I would have to experience. Cause like, what are the odds that it's going to happen in the same place at the same time that you're coming with a group? So I had to think real fast because I had a group of women in Madrid that they were getting on their connecting flight to Marrakesh, and they're like, are we still going? Like, is it safe to go there? There's nothing in the news yet, so it's not like you can read anything or ask anybody. And so I had to make a judgment call. And from what I could assess, like it seemed like it was going to be okay. And I'm a firm believer that natural disasters sometimes are the best time to experience a place because they need your help more than ever. And so I told the group to come. So we still carried out the group trip. It didn't really change a whole lot of what we were doing. Like our accommodations were fine, luckily. Not every place was fine, but ours were. And I felt like it was like a really good opportunity for our group to give back because right away, I'm on a lot of like travel Facebook groups and things like that. And right away, people were blowing up chats about Marrakesh and saying, like, should I cancel my trip to Morocco? Or I need a new place to go because Morocco just had an earthquake. And so now I'm not going there because it's not safe. And it's like, well, what makes it not safe? Like the earthquake already happened. So like
Mhm.
damage is done, if you will. So like, yeah, there could be aftershocks, but like, what are the odds that like there's going to be some other big, huge natural disaster after that happened? But what people don't think about is after that happens, like that country needs your support and your tourism more than ever because these
Yeah.
people are living off of tourism. They're living off of you shopping in their stores. They're living off of you eating in their restaurants, taking their tours. And if everybody pulls out and cancels their trips, like think of what happened during the pandemic, that can have such a huge impact. And so I had asked people and I was like, do we still want tourism here in Morocco? And everyone said yes. And so we carried out the trip. And that was kind of our like mentality during the trip was like, we were there to support Morocco. We were there to be tourists, even though it may not have been perfect. And, there was a little bit of destruction and chaos going on at the time. Like these people were all still showing up to work, looking for people to
Mhm.
sell to, people to serve in the restaurants. And so we were there. And I think like that was the like underlying tone of our trip. And I think it made it so much more impactful for everybody who was there because we were there with purpose. Like, and I know everyone on the trip was asking everybody, is your family okay? Like, is your house okay? Like, they were just much more, I think, interested in the Moroccan people because of what had happened. So yeah, I always say it's not like I would choose for it to happen that way,
Yeah.
because of course I don't want a natural disaster. I don't want people to die or be hurt or whatever. But I also like am grateful for the way it happened, because I do think it made for a really impactful experience, and it brought our group like much closer together.
Yeah, and I can't even imagine too of just, the way it helped mold even the group tighter, closer. You had probably some interesting conversations because of it. I think it's unfortunate that we have to have some of those major things happen, or pivotal moments in life, or natural disaster, or just hurdles that we have to go over in life. But it sometimes makes us like the bond stronger, gives us a new perspective, enjoys the moment and have more gratitude. And so it's unfortunate that had to happen, but it probably changed the whole dynamic of the trip, and even
Absolutely.
more than what you guys even hoped for or imagined, I guess.
Yeah, and I always hope that my trips give people perspective, because that's what
Mhm.
traveling is, right? Like you can't travel and expect things to be exactly the same as they are at home, or that things go perfectly. Like that's just not what happens. And but I think sometimes people have that in their heads, that like I'm going to go here and everything's going to be perfect, and I'm going to get exactly what I want when I want it. And sometimes I do have those people on my trips, and I take that as a challenge to get people to think outside the box. It's like, are you traveling to experience everything the way you experience it out at
Mm,
home? Or are you traveling so you can experience something different and experience like a different way of life, and gain maybe some perspective on and gratitude for like what we have? And there's no better example of that than experiencing a natural disaster in another country, because like, how could you complain about anything when
yeah,
people have just lost their homes and they're standing in the streets? Like, and I sometimes have like a very low tolerance for that type of stuff, because I'm like, come on, people, like look around us. Like, and that's not just during a natural disaster, that's anywhere we go. It's like I have a really hard time complaining when you're seeing people who have so much less, and travel's like a great example of doing that, where it's just staring you in the face and it's pretty hard to ignore.
yeah. Well, I say, let's kind of even switch gears a little bit of, what led you to doing this business and why you're so passionate about it. And, too, that you're kind of sometimes living out of a suitcase and traveling around the world.
Yeah, I would say, I mean, it's a combination of factors, but I would say one of the biggest ones was I got divorced in 2017. And I was in that relationship for 10 years. I traveled a lot when I was younger. I lived in Spain twice. Like I was a very adventurous person, kind of always. And then when I was in this relationship, like we would just go to Mexico every year. We do like a Mexico beach vacation, kind of what a lot of people in the Midwest do, because it's cold as hell here in Wisconsin. And
Yeah.
when you're busy and you have a full-time career, like sometimes it's just easy to book a trip to Mexico. It's not intimidating. You're familiar with it. Like it's just what people do. And I got to this point of just like, I went on this trip to Spain, like right before I left my husband. And he came with me, but I planned the whole thing. And it was just like this aha moment of like, what am I doing? Like this is
Mhm.
not who I am. Like I am not this person that just like goes through the motions of life and never really like steps outside the box. Like that's not who I am, and that's not who I was. And of course, like it wasn't just that. I was obviously like very unhappy in my marriage. And so when I left my husband, and I literally left him right after a trip to Spain, like that trip was like a light bulb moment for me. And when I got home, I think within 2 weeks I had left my marriage. And I decided, as I got divorced and I went through that process, that I was going to do things differently, and I was going to kind of get back to like who I felt like I always was. And a lot of that was being adventurous and like exploring and getting outside my comfort zone and doing things that are unfamiliar. And so I wanted to start planning trips to places like Turkey and Colombia and Mexico City. I had all these like ideas of places on my list, and everybody was like, you can't go there. It's not safe. Like, you can't do that by yourself. Like, are you nuts? Why would you want to go somewhere like Turkey? Isn't that a war zone? Colombia? Like, aren't you going to get kidnapped? that was just all the message. Those are the messages that I was receiving from people like across the board.
Mhm.
Nobody understood. And I was struggling with finding people to go with because either like there weren't other people who wanted to do it, or they didn't have the same vacation time, or they didn't have the money, or they wanted to travel with their spouse, whatever the reason was. Like I was struggling and I was like, I don't want to do this alone, not just because of like safety. I just don't necessarily like love solo travel. So I realized there was a lack of representation, I think, for women to travel, and travel to places that aren't like run of the mill, stereotypical travel destinations. And so I found a girl to go to Colombia with me in a Facebook group. I told her I would plan the whole trip if she would just come. And she was like, I don't even know where Colombia is, but I'll go with you. And I was like,
Wow.
perfect. Yeah, she was very trusting. Ended up being a great trip because I did so much research. Like we did all of these experiences that like aren't typical. We were really immersed with the locals. It was just a really, really wonderful experience. And I was like, man, like I could do this for other people. Like this isn't hard for me to do. This is something I'm passionate about. And she got so much out of it that I was like,
Huh.
okay, I think I'm on to something here. And
Yeah.
so I was working full time at a technical college. I was a director of a student services department. I had a really good job, loved what I did, but I just didn't feel fulfilled after the pandemic. Um, I I came back to the office after we had worked remotely for a bit, and it was not the same for me. Like I couldn't snap back into it. I just didn't feel like I belonged anymore. Um, and the more and more I traveled, the less I felt like I belonged in the world I was living in. I just didn't fit in
Mhm.
anymore. I didn't feel understood. I didn't feel comfortable. I just felt like I was meant to be doing something else. And I always felt like travel was the way for me. During the pandemic, when people couldn't travel, I think everyone has some kind of story in the pandemic related to travel where or feeling stifled or feeling
Yeah.
stuck. And I think a lot of that was because people weren't able to get out and explore. They weren't able to go places. And that's what really brought to light for me, like how important travel is in my life. Because when I couldn't go anywhere, I literally felt dead inside. And that's not an
Mhm.
exaggeration. I was so depressed. I had nothing to look forward to. All of my plans were canceled. And I didn't even see like the point of living because I couldn't travel. And when I started doing it again, I had gone through this really bad breakup, not my divorce, but a different breakup. The only thing that really got me out of it was travel. It was planning a trip, forcing myself to go, forcing myself to have different experiences, and getting that perspective when I was traveling of like, wow, the world is really big. There's a shit ton of people out here. Like I don't need to be stuck on one guy like who doesn't really matter. There's so many people who have so much less. Like people have bigger problems in the world. I gained so much perspective from that I was like, I just felt called to do it. And so I started my business while I was still working at my college. And I thought I was just kind of going to do this as like a side thing for fun. And I was not, I was maybe 2 months into it. And I realized I had to be one or the other. And so
Mhm.
I was 38 at the time. I'm 40 now. I don't have kids. I'm divorced. I'm still single. I was like, not a lot of people have this opportunity where they don't really have anything holding them back or holding them down. And so I was like, if I don't do this now, I'm never going to. So, like, I kind of was just like, screw it. Like, I can always find another job. If it doesn't work out, like I'm employable, I'll figure it out. But I kind of was like, this is never going to work unless I'm just all in on it. And so,
Mhm.
yeah, I put in my 30 days notice I had one group trip planned to Mexico City. I had 4 women on it. They were all my friends. They didn't know each other, but I knew all of them. And that was it. I didn't have any other plan. It was this one trip to Mexico City, which was exactly 2 years ago for Day of the Dead. And that trip changed my life, like literally.
Mhm.
The chance that I took on quitting my job and just kind of going all in on it, like it literally changed my life. Mexico City has such a special place in my heart because of everything that happened during that trip. Yeah, like I was just all in on it. Once I saw like what this could do for people, I was like, I was all in.
Well, I appreciate you being so open and talking about, just it was a hard time for a lot of people. And I think we all have different experiences through the pandemic and feelings that maybe we didn't always expect, and I think that's where too you realize what really fuels you and makes you happy inside. And it seems that too you like seeing other people happy and trying new things and going out of their comfort zone too. So I'm really thankful that, you're opening up and talking about this because I hope the listeners are getting a new perspective of maybe some things that aren't filling their cup up, or if they're feeling lonely, or maybe too they need to travel more. Cause I feel like, yeah, we haven't traveled as much as we used to back in the day. And it is something that we're passionate about doing. So I hope maybe this is even a catalyst for other people to try new things or to check out your trips. And where are you traveling next, or what things are coming up that maybe people might get excited about, that want to learn more and see what you're doing?
I have a little bit of a break until Christmas, and then I
Yeah.
am taking 2 groups to Cuba in January. So I'm super excited about that trip. I actually still have 2 spots on my second
Ooh,
trip for that one. If anybody wants
okay.
to hop on last minute, I still have people who joining last minute, but that trip I'm super excited about because Cuba is such a complicated place and it's not always pretty. And sometimes I think that's the most impactful type of travel that you can have. So we do a lot of giving back during that trip.
Mm,
Cuba has a very tumultuous relationship with the United States, unfortunately. And so by traveling with a group like this, you're supporting the Cuban people directly. We're helping employ them. We're helping in so many ways. We bring supplies and all kinds of things. So it's just a really, really cool, unique experience that not everybody gets to have in their lifetime, unfortunately, because
mm,
Americans can't travel to Cuba under like tourism reasons.
yeah.
Um, After that, I mean, I have some personal travels. I'm going to Georgia, like the country.
Ooh.
So that will be really interesting. And then I am going to Morocco in April with a group of women. In May, I'm going to Spain for a conference. And then I am heading over to Greece for my first Greece group trip. So we're doing our sailing trip. Still have spots available on that one. We'll be spending about 3 days in the mainland of Greece and then 6 days sailing. So we'll be on private sailboats with a skipper and we'll be island hopping, but going to the lesser known places in Greece. So no
Mm,
Santorini, no Mykonos. We're only exploring the lesser known places and giving tourism dollars to the places that don't always get all of the tourism. And then let's see what's after that. I'm going to Puerto Rico for another conference. This is like a year of conferences for me. And then in September, I have Morocco and Greece again. So I have a few spots left on my September Greece trip, and I have some spots left on my September Morocco trip. Morocco is a 10-day road trip. So we start in
ooh.
Casablanca and we pop over to Chefchaouen, which is like the blue city that people see pictures of. It's beautiful. We go to Fez, which is the oldest imperial city in Morocco, where all the leather goods are and all the makers. It's really cool. Then we go to the Sahara Desert, which is my favorite part of the trip. We spend 2 days in the Sahara. We glamp, we sleep under the stars, we ride camels, we go ATVing in the sand dunes. It's incredible. And then we stop for one night at an oasis with like an infinity pool just for like an R&R day. And then we go to Marrakesh, which is like the hustle and bustle of Morocco, and amazing shopping, amazing food, like really, really fun place. And
Mm,
then I have Mexico City in October, which is the trip I just got back from. I'll be opening that one up hopefully in the next week. But we go to Mexico City during Dia de los Muertos and we learn firsthand what that holiday means to the Mexican culture. And I think that trip is life-changing for people. I've seen it happen so many times where they go in kind of blind, just thinking they're going to Mexico City for something really cool. And then they really realize like the depth of that holiday and like what it means. And it really is like a transformative experience. I just got back from
mm.
there. I see people like literally change before my eyes, which is the most incredible part of my job. So that's kind of my next year in review.
Ugh,
Um, I know it
sounds
sounds fun, but
amazing.
yeah, it's chaotic, but I do have some spots open on some of those trips. So
Yeah,
I'm
cool.
looking forward to meeting all my new my new travel peeps.
No travel peeps. Well, I love it. And I love to learn more. And I'm thankful that we met. This was actually a first time meeting, and I love the
Yeah.
conversation. And so I appreciate you being on the podcast. And I'm thankful that you're leaning into what fills your cup up, because look at all the goodness that you're spreading to so many places around the world, but also the people that you're bringing together. So
Thank
keep
you.
shining bright and doing it. And I'm excited to learn more about all the things that you're doing.
Yeah. Right. Well,
Well, I
thanks
hope
for
our
having me.
listeners reach out to you and they join some of your travels. So thank you for joining me on the show today.
Yeah. Thanks for having me.